Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Welcome back to episode 212 of the Last Round Podcast. Thank you again for joining us, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Audio Boom, however you're at, wherever you're listening, we appreciate it. This week, our special guest of the week, he's a combat sports commentator, publicist, and journalist. He recently did this past weekend's event in Paris, France, that was headlined by Dan Azeez and Thomas Farrer. I think I'm pronouncing that wrong, but
Thomas Bowray.
Bowray. Okay, I knew it was something.
That's what I was calling him anyway all last night. So I
got it. Hopefully that's right. And then Carlos Takam and Tony Yoka was also on that card, which we'll touch on in the second. Adam Noble-Forcey joins us this week on the Last Round. Thank you for joining us, Adam.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on. It really is. I've been listening for years, so it's kind of weird being on, actually.
Well, we appreciate it. We always try to look to see to get new faces and new guests here on the Last Round instead of trying to get a same rotation. So we definitely appreciate you giving us your valuable time here this week. So before we kind of jump in to that card that you were a part of this past weekend in Paris, can you kind of give our listeners a little bit of background of who you are and how you got to where you are today in, let's just say, the combat sports world?
Yeah. When you said before we went live, I started thinking, how did I do that? I don't have any sort of journalism background or anything like that. I think I was about 29 and not a lot, like life was getting pretty boring, typical. I broke up with a girl and all that sort of stuff. And I always enjoyed boxing, and I always wanted to, I had a friend who was a sports journalist, and I thought, that is probably the coolest job in the world. And I thought, well, there's sort of no reason why you can't do that anymore. And I think what I really fell in love about boxing in covering it is the access you get. I just started turning up to gyms and press conferences and talking to future world champions and things like that. So it's quite an easy thing to get into if you're ready, if you're willing to put in the work. So I started working. I'm from Southampton originally, and there's a boxing manager and promoter, a Russian guy who lives in that town called Azeez-Fau, and at the time he was managing Maris Bradis in Riga, Latvia, and he was doing some really sort of like cool international shows along the south coast in England with sort of no local fighters on. So I started working for him, and that's when the commentary started. I started doing the shows in Riga, Latvia, the L&K Fight Night, which I've done about 30 shows with them now. We did the MTK Golden Contract out there as well. So that was a really cool night, deep COVID and all that. So it was kind of cool out there. I've recently just left Latvia, but we were doing shows in Latvia through Siesta Boxing as well. I'm trying to... the first card I ever commentated was headlined by Richard Bolotniks and Emmanuel Valori of Argentina. That was the sort of one of the co-main events.
When was that? How long ago was that?
It's about 5 years ago now.
Okay.
And then I ended up actually living in Latvia. So I went out last minute for Usyk Bradis, because Azeez didn't like the Latvian journalist. So it was kind of a last minute thing. And then we went out there. It was pretty cool because it was sort of like Riga turned into this sort of like Eastern European Las Vegas boxing. Like Igor Klimas was there, Vlad Krunov, all the big names in Russia and Ukraine everyone was there. And then Azeez did his own show. And then they needed a native English sports commentator. They haven't got any of them in Latvia, so I was able to jump in and start doing some sports commentary. And then I did a couple of shows for Albert and Siesta Boxing in Bracknell, of all places, just outside London. And there was a fighter we were working with there called Luther Clay, He's not really fighting anymore, but he had some good fights for Freddie Kiwitt. He lost to what's his name? I can't remember now. Anyway, one of the English fighters. But yeah, he won a WBO global title. And then from there, and then COVID happened. And weirdly, that's when sort of like everything really accelerated for me, because you start, there wasn't a lot of money, and Latvia, there's no sort of furlough payments and things like that. So, it just started sort of kind of hitting the phones. And then I started working with Universum Box Promotion in Hamburg. And that was due through a good mate now, Flavio Mirabal, who's actually doing another different show with Bernd Bonte in 2 weeks in Hamburg. So going back to Hamburg after about a year. And then since then, we've done shows in Serbia because of COVID, because they'd let us do a show. Dubai, I went out there once, worked for a company called Legacy Sports Management. These are them, actually. They've signed Austin Trout and stuff like that. But yeah, my career is quite different to a lot of people. I'm always I'm quite self-sustained. You know what I mean? I never worked directly for a TV company. All my work's done through relationships with promoters. And to be honest, most of it comes through word of mouth. You try and, cold call yourself to do more commentary. It never works. So, and then the stuff in Paris started happening, which is some of the coolest. I was there for the Bacoli fight as well. I've gone real quick through the last sort of 7 years. But in between that time as well, I did some journalism stuff, did some stuff for pro boxing fans. I had a little company called Fight Talk, me and some friends ran, which was really good fun. I bumped into the guy in Paris, actually, Sam O'Reilly. Haven't seen him for years. And then the sort of like the publicizing thing as well is quite strange. You don't get many publicists who are commentators. But yeah, it's just sort of, if you're working on a show, you become quite involved in it, because a lot of these things are quite hard. They struggle to make money, like all boxing events. So yeah, it's not no problem getting my hands dirty. So I've worked with Richard Bolotniks quite a lot and covered that crazy period where he was just knocking out loads of UK fighters. He knocked out Stephen Ward, and then he beat Jose Abertin in Riga, and then he won the Golden Contract, and then he's been off in Barcelona and fighting Buatsi. He meant to be fighting Craig Richards, but I've heard it's been called off again, but it's not official. So yeah, it's been pretty cool. It's kind of weird. I haven't really thought about it before until you guys brought it up. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's kind of my career, so far.
So did you, when you first got an opportunity to commentate, because obviously that's a very specific job to do. Did you study anybody specifically? Did you study multiple other commentators who already have been doing it? How did you prepare for that?
Just watched boxing. That was about it. Yeah. It took me like 3 or 4 shows to sort of find my voice with it. There's my now wife. She was very critical to me when I first did my commentary. But yeah, I think as well, in Latvia, being native English speaker, they don't have many of them out there. So I think that was there for me as well. And I did blag it a little bit. I was like, yeah, I've done loads of commentary. I can do it for you. And luckily it went okay. And Al Siesta actually sat with me as a co-commentator on the show. So he was really good and helpful. So yeah, a lot of my career is thanks to Al Siesta, actually. I hate to admit it, but yeah, he's played a huge role. So yeah, don't work with him anymore. Haven't done for many years, but yeah.
So where's? Oh, go ahead, Mike. I think you had a question.
No, I was just going to say you should have like a business card to be Adam Noble-Forcey. I have a voice. I will travel.
Yeah. I need to kill one of them. Yeah, that's a good idea. To be honest, the weirdest thing about the job was, do you remember COVID? Traveling around during that mayhem, and then you're going to different countries, so the rules change all the time. And Germany was one of the only places that was really consistently doing shows, and the rules would change every week. But yeah, it was a messed up couple of years, man. I spent so much on COVID tests; it's insane. I must have spent about $4,000 on COVID tests in a year.
Oh man.
But yeah, made a profit, but
Yeah.
still $4,000. You know what I mean? So,
Is there anywhere that you'd like to? Because you've been to obviously several countries in and around Europe and the whole region. Is there anywhere that you haven't? Obviously, maybe the United States, but anywhere else?
yeah, Mexico. I would love to go to Mexico. I love the Mexican fighters. Anytime I watch them, I'm working for a company called ProBox TV now. Obviously, you know Chris Glover. So yeah, we're doing shows. I'm working with them at the moment as well. And yeah, I love the Mexico shows we put on. Juan Manuel Marquez. So Mexico would be huge. I'd like to go to Canada as well, actually. Go to Montreal. Go and check that out. Argentina. Go down to Buenos Aires and watch all the Maidana stuff.
Maidana shows, yeah.
Yeah, I met him. Pretty cool, actually. I met Maidana in Dusseldorf through pretty weird Dusseldorf in Western Germany. Marcus Maidana's rolling around with 4 amazing Argentinian fighters on the card. He looks after Fernando Martinez, the world champion. I commentated on him in. That's pretty cool when I didn't really know about Fernando Martinez, and you're like, wow, this guy's going to go on and win a world title. And then he does. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. Interviewed people like Marcus Maidana and Austin Trout and some big names through Legacy. But, yeah, there's a long list of places I want to go. Spain is really cool. I spend a lot of time in Spain. My dad lives in Spain. And I think the boxing's really cool there. And they know their stuff, the Spanish fans. As you can see, the sort of good fighters they got coming out at the moment. But yeah, Spain's a big one as well, and Russia.
Bilbao.
Russia
Some of those Bilbao shows with Kerman Lahara.
Yeah, that would be. I was down to do one of them. Do you know that? I was down to do when he fought Avanesian in Bilbao. I was actually They said, oh yeah, we'll use you because we didn't like the last commentator or something. So I sent them a clip, and then they didn't get the TV deal. So yeah, that was gutting. That would have been amazing, Bilbao. Yeah, just it's nice to just go out. I like. I'm a bit of an adventurer anyway, and I move city quite a lot. I move around quite a bit. So I've just moved to Edinburgh from Riga. There's no real reason why, but I just did it. So yeah,
Adam, who do you think is the? Let's take yourself out of the equation. Who's the best combat sports commentator today? Like, who do you admire the most?
I've always liked Malignaggi. I've always liked him. I know he's getting he got a little bit of a rough time, and I know I'm obviously a colleague of his.
He's with ProBox,
you know him very well. Yeah, he's at ProBox. With him and Chris Algieri have made a bit of a connection, I think. So they're flowing really nicely at the moment. But it's not actually a boxing commentator. It's actually a football commentator, John Motson, who I'm sure you know very well, who recently passed away. That's sort of my real inspiration. That's sort of anyone from my country. He was the best.
He was the man. Yeah.
He was sort of better than any of that. There hasn't been. I don't know. The British boxing commentators are all right, but there hasn't been in boxing like Motson. There hasn't been a Motson. Like America got loads of great names, but in UK there's no one's really grabbed it. I don't think I'm going to be that guy, by the way. But some of that real sort of voice, and as soon as you think of boxing, you hear that voice. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't think there's anyone to come out of my country to do that at the moment. But a lot of the time, I do turn commentary off. Especially if I hate listening to myself commentate. I never study my own commentary. No way. I'm not sitting there.
So you mentioned right now, as soon as you hear that voice, you kind of know it's related to boxing, or you think boxing. You said there's nobody in the UK right now that comes to mind, but who in the United States, whether it's past or present, if you hear that voice, does it make you think of the sport?
You got a few, like obviously Roy Jones Jr. That's sort of on sort of HBO. All those guys on HBO. But yeah, I'm sort of more thinking about sort of like the Motson thing. But yeah, it's a tough question. Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't. Yeah, I'm struggling.
I mean, Roy Jones was very prevalent with the HBO team, so that's for years.
Yeah, and then obviously Kellerman and all that. I liked all those. That was a nice team. But yeah, that's already got there.
So let's jump into the event that you were at this past weekend, just the other day. Fight reviews this past Saturday, the 11th of March, and correct me if I'm wrong, from the Zenith de Paris La Villette in Paris.
I called it something like that on the.
Okay, man, I thought maybe you knew how to pronounce it
last night. Yeah.
Okay, in Paris, France. Let's just keep it simple like that. In the main event, Dan Azeez remains undefeated with the 12th round TKO over Thomas. Help me again. How do you pronounce his last name?
I was the MC and myself got Fowler.
Fowler?
Just how it looks. Yeah, we've just
okay. Got it. Yeah, Thomas Fowler, and this was for the EBU European Light Heavyweight Championship. So you being right there in the building, you were commentating on the fight. What was your take on the fight and obviously the ultimate result?
What a fight, first of all, and hats off to Thomas Fowler. Wow, what a tough guy. There were multiple times in that fight where it looked like he was out on his feet, and then he just come back with every time it looked like it was over for him, he'd give the referee a reason to let it keep going. But what a performance from Dan Azeez. It was like 9 out of 10 performance. I thought it was brilliant. Controlled him, beat him up. He had some problems leading up to the fight. I think he had a family member pass away. He had a problem on the scales, so he had to remake the weight. He's in Paris, which Fowler was from. It's quite a hostile atmosphere in Paris, actually. If you actually look into the history of France, they're quite disgusting fans if you look through the last 200 years and all the stuff they've done. And it was amazing. Great atmosphere, great performance from Azeez. It's pretty cool. I bumped into my friend Sam last night at the show, who's followed Dan Azeez from his sort of debut, and he's gone Southern area, English, Commonwealth, British, now got the European. He's one of those small hall fighters who've just worked their way up, and he's working with Buddy McGirt now. That looks like it's taken him to a whole nother level. I think he's proper full time now. Wow, what a performance! He's a real contender now in that light heavyweight division. It's crazy. He's probably going to fight for a world title very soon.
Mike, what'd you think about Azeez's win?
Great performance. Yeah, I think Adam kind of summed it up. Really, I thought Fowler just kept coming. His face was beaten and bloodied, but there was no quitting him. And you could see that Dan Azeez, unless he was going to get robbed on the scorecards, I thought, he was going to come away victorious and, managed to get him out of there in the last round. I thought Buddy McGirt, as usual, just told him the bare-faced facts in the corner. He's very straight to the point, in between rounds, and told Azeez what he needed to do. I thought his jab looked, worldly. He just couldn't miss with it all night. Great performance. And then he's just... at the perfect time, he's kind of like hit the scene, kind of jumped up, because the light heavyweight scene in the UK, not only has he got all the different world titles he could get, but the light heavyweight scene just at British level is crazy. All the different names that he could get in there. So, good on him. A great performance. And I know I'm probably going to say what they kept saying, like on the commentary is, he lost his first amateur fight. And then now look, what he's gone on to do. Like Adam said, he's slowly but surely worked his way up, which is, I love that when they win, like an area title, English, then they work their way up, little by little, like Tyson Fury did the same thing. So, it's good to see. And hopefully now people will, keep an eye on Dan Azeez because, he looks really good fighter and talks well as well.
So, Adam, in the light heavyweight division, you got top guys, Dimitri Bivol, even a fight we're going to talk about in a second or a couple minutes. Gilberto Ramirez is also there, who's in the Golden Boy stable. Who else am I missing, Mike? Who else is at the top, title-wise?
You got Bivol, Beterbiev, Callum Smith, Joseph Jr.,
Callum Smith,
Gilberto Ramirez, Jean Pascal, Boazzi, Anthony Yard.
So out of any of those names, Adam, not saying it happens next or something, but who would be, I guess, because obviously some are better than the others. I would say maybe Bivol, maybe the top of the food chain at 175 pounds right now. But for Dan Azeez, let's just say in the next couple fights or something like that, who would be the ideal opponent for him out of any of those top names at 175 pounds right now?
So I think Dan will need. I think it would be wrong to go straight into a world title fight now. I think he needs one or two more fights before that. He's 33, so he's like perfect age. I don't want him to take a couple of years, but I'd like him to. I don't know. I think let's see how he gets on with the Bolotniks or something like that. I think that could be quite nice. Or maybe a Craig Richards fight, something like that, like a really good, tough fight. But yeah, if he came through one of those guys looking really good, yeah, I think he's ready. Like anyone's going to struggle to beat Beterbiev and Bivol. They're ridiculous fighters. I'm two of the best fighters I've ever seen. Both of them. So yeah, he's going to struggle against them. But Anthony Yard could be a good fight as well. That would be fun, wouldn't it? I know you got the TV problems, which obviously feast with Frank Warren, but you got Lyndon Arthur as well. I think he's fighting for an IBO title coming up or something in a couple of weeks. So yeah, the list goes on. Don't want him. I don't think Callum Smith's. He could be all wrong for Callum Smith. Actually, you look with John Ryder performance against Callum Smith. Dan Azeez might be able to get in there and do more damage. So yeah, but he's in the mix. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'd like to see him. I think chuck him in there with a Bolotniks or something like that, and see how he gets on, and then yeah, you know where you are. But yeah, by this time next year, he could be fighting for a world title. They'll have to do it right with him. He's good. He's not that good though. Do you know what I mean? They'll have to do it right with him if they want him to win a world title. They'll have to be reasonably careful. But the sort of culture's kind of changing now. It's more the O has to go almost in the first 10 fights. People are being matched tougher. They're fighting tougher fights. I think boxer matchmaking and undercards have drastically improved in like the last sort of 3, 4, 5 months. I don't know if you think that as well. So yeah, there seems to be a swing in momentum in the culture of, fighters taking fights.
Who do you think is the best light heavyweight in the world? Is it Beterbiev or Bivol?
Well, it'd be good if they fought and we could just find out.
Right. Right now. Yeah, obviously that's the easy route, but right now,
that's never going to happen
what you
in
think?
the sport we cover. I change my mind quite regularly on this. I think they're both hard as nails. And they've the worst we've seen from Bivol is like he chilled out a bit against Craig Richards. Do you know what I mean? Beterbiev, he had that fight with Callum Johnson, didn't he? Where he did get dropped. So I'm going Bivol. I think I'm going Bivol. I've seen more holes in very small, tiny little holes, but yeah, more holes in Beterbiev, I think.
Would you categorize them as 1A and 1B because it's that close?
Yeah, it's really close. Like, I think if they fought each other 10 times, they'd probably win 5 times each. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. But yeah, have to see that fight. Obviously, this war thing doesn't make this Ukrainian war thing doesn't make life easy for anybody from that part of the world. So that fight would have probably would have taken place in Russia pre-war. Moscow would have been a great, or St. Petersburg would have been amazing. But yeah, the Russians were really investing lots of money into professional boxing and the World Boxing Super Series ahead of what's going on in Ukraine. So yeah, there's a big hole missing in boxing at the moment, and where some of the best fighters on the planet come from. So yeah. Hopefully, it gets resolved soon over there, because there's a lot of boxers over there that don't look like it.
Yeah,
don't look like
boxers over there that need a fight, and hopefully they get some action. Also on the card, Carlos Takam gets the split decision win over Tony Yoka by scores of 96-94 twice and 94-96. What'd you think about this fight, Adam?
Well, the Parisian judges are quite adorable, actually. Bacoli was a majority decision win to Bacoli. And, we all watched that fight. Bacoli beat him up for 10 rounds. Those scorecards were absolutely ridiculous. Tony, he's so frustrating to watch. And he's a big deal out there in France. They really like him. Even off the defeat, he still sold out, I think it was 7,000 or 8,000 last night. It was pretty full. There were a couple of empty seats at the top, but people usually come down to the front, don't they? I gave him maybe the first round. Maybe there was another round later on. What am I completely off there? I'm struggling to give him 2 rounds. I'm making it 8-2 to Takam. At very best for Tony Yoka. I thought Takam was great. I thought his jab was great. He pushed the fight, great engine. He was throwing, big right hands, putting combinations together, basic stuff in a boxing match. And Yoka was just one jab. You'd see one jab a minute. And then he'd sort of do a little bit of nice movement. That was it. He was rubbish. I'm being quite hard on him. And I've been quite hard on him in the commentary, but he just doesn't care. Like Carlos Takam was more bothered about his career than he was after the fight. He just didn't care. He's not bothered. He's a tough kid as well. He's got a good chin. He takes good shots. I'll give him that. He hasn't quit in these 2 losses. It's almost like some weird self-punishment he's putting himself through. It's weird. I don't know. I don't want to talk ill of his team or anything, because they all seem pretty cool. The promoter, Jerome, who runs All-Star Boxing, really cool guy, trying to put on some really cool fights. And I was actually in the taxi with Virgil Hunter after the Bacoli defeat. One of them was like, oh, hello. And he was sort of under the impression if Yoka won the last round in the Bacoli fight, the fight was a draw. It was kind of, so I don't know. I did hear there were problems in camp. He came in career heaviest for this fight as well, Yoka did, around 260. And it just made him a lot slower. He's a bit of a, he's a good-looking kid who's got a half-decent jab. He doesn't... I don't know. Maybe it will change. Maybe if he goes on the undercard or goes as the away fighter, it could, stranger things have happened in boxing. But, he's fighting a journeyman in a, somewhere no one's really watching next. If he continues, I don't even know if he will. He didn't look... having lived abroad for a long time, not knowing what the hell people are saying, speaking Latvian or Russian or whatever, you learn body language, and that guy.
Mike, what do you think of the outcome?
Carlos Takam, the French Chisora. I thought Adam summed it up again, pretty much the same as me. I thought Takam, you could arguably say, won pretty much every single round. Tony Yoka didn't do much. It's like he's kind of fallen out of love with boxing, but doesn't want to get a normal job. So he just kind of gets in there and fights because he kind of has to. There's no urgency behind it. Not a big fan of, I don't really rate Virgil Hunter either, to be honest with you, apart from getting the uber talented Andre Ward, who I could probably train and win all those world titles with. What's he ever done? Boatsy doesn't do anything. Yoka doesn't do anything. He had Amir Khan, didn't do much with Khan. Khan's best years were probably under Freddie Roach. He's also trains that Sissoko, right? The Sissoko kid who was...
Oh, he trains him? Oh.
Yeah, I think the Suleiman Sissoko, I think he trains him. He hasn't done much either. Yeah, not the biggest fan of Virgil Hunter, to be honest with you. Yeah, I don't know. Yoka's just weird. Yeah, he just kind of just like goes through rounds, pretty lazy. To say that Takam looked like he was outworking him kind of says something, right? Takam's pretty basic, and I think Yoka, if he came in a little bit hungrier, a little bit lighter, he kind of just relied on his speed in there. I thought he would have, turned Takam over, because I'm pretty sure that was a carefully selected opponent to make Yoka look good, and it backfired. So, where does, Yoka go from this? Does he take a break, or does he just, like you touched on, Adam, does he just pick like nice, easy opponents because the French fans still love him? And he could probably make a career out of doing that, really, just picking dudes who just turn out to be cannon fodder.
Yeah, they were booing him last night, though. They were booing him, yeah.
Oh,
wow. Yeah, even when he put his arm up, they were like that. And I'm this is one of the good things about being a smoker, because you go out and you talk to other fans. And the French boxing fans, they do know their stuff. They're not a lot of people in UK, especially, they sort of live in their bubbles. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone does, it's a normal thing. But yeah, they were saying, look, it's levels, and he's not good enough. But yeah. Virgil Hunter was saying some weird things in the corner as well. It was quite interesting. It might have been an honest mistake, but he said there were 2 rounds left when there was 1 round left. Yeah, Virgil Hunter, I always thought his sort of inspirational talks in between rounds, that was sort of like his main thing. Do you remember Andre Ward? All sorts of trouble against Kovalev. And he sort of grabbed him, really inspired him to keep going. I thought that was an amazing sort of corner performance from Virgil Hunter in that first fight with Kovalev, with Andre Ward. But yeah, it's almost like he didn't care either. Everyone stopped caring.
Yeah, so he's one of those coaches to me that just lives off. Andre Ward is probably just one of the best fighters we've had in our generation. Any of us 3 could probably have trained Andre Ward and he would have been a world champion, because he's just that good. The same as anybody like Ben Davidson stepped out of nowhere to lead Tyson Fury to these wins. Tyson Fury is just the best heavyweight, regardless of who gets in there. And I think his dad even said the same thing. Like anybody could walk off the street and tame Tyson, and Tyson's boxing IQ's that good that he could get in there and win anyway. And I think, Virgil just kind of really lives off that.
Usyk's like that.
Exactly. Usyk, probably Lomachenko at the same time. They're just that talented. It doesn't really matter who's in the corner.
Yeah,
right.
Couldn't agree more.
Adam, so we touched on that. Tony Yoka was at his career heaviest, 260 pounds for this fight. Ideally, what do you think? What should his weight have been at for him to excel a little bit more in this fight?
I don't know. Like, maybe we're thinking a bit too much about the weight, but I saw he came in heavy, and I was like, we got a new Tony Yoka. Do you know what I mean? He's gonna come out. We're just gonna have a firefight with him and Carlos Takam. That did not happen. It was a good fight, actually. I did enjoy the fight, but yeah, Yoka was sort of letting the team down in the fight. I don't know. I don't think it's got anything to do with weight. I think it's all, we're sort of maybe nitpicking. He just doesn't want to be in there. He just doesn't care. Yeah, I don't know why, but he was married to Estelle Mosley Yoka, or now just Estelle Mosley. So I don't know. He's been he's in the French media a lot, obviously with his gold medal wins. So, but yeah, there's something going on behind the scenes, because he seems like a nice kid. He actually does. Like, he was apologizing to Virgil Hunter. He was like, "Oh, I'm sorry." I was like, "Oh man." Like, it's hard to watch. Do you know what I mean? Kind of doesn't want to be there, but he's going through it anyway. Yeah, it kind of made me feel weird. Like, the guy's kind of torturing himself. Do you know what I mean?
How old is he?
He's got it all. He's 30. I think he's 30, yeah. He's got it all in it. He's lovely looking. He's tall, dark, handsome. Had a smoking hot wife. Do you know what I mean? It's just... And they broke up, so I don't know really what happened there. But yeah, the investment into him was crazy when he first came out. Heyman, DeBella, can't think of, Richard Schaefer. Yeah, everyone wanted him. So, but it's a big market, and his shows make money, so that's probably why.
So where does he go from here? Should he go back to the drawing board? Should he get a new trainer? We touched on Virgil Hunter pretty extensively. What needs to change for somebody like Tony Yoka going forward? What do you think, Adam?
Go on the road. Go on the road, I think. Why not? This pressure fighting in France seems to be getting to him. I've worked with fighters before, and a great example, actually. No one's ever heard of this fighter, Ricky Little. Me and him won the super flyweight Southern Area title together, me and Ricky. Good mate of mine from Southampton. And he was so stressed when he'd be fighting on a home show and he was the home fighter, with his ticket sales and, people asking him, his friends constantly asking him about the fight, and a lot of anxiety and stress, and, it would affect his performance. And as soon as he just got sent, a contract and you're going to earn X amount, like it wasn't even that much money. It was a couple of grand to fight this guy at York Hall. Super chilled. He knew what he was going to do. He knew he was getting paid. So I would recommend that. Go and fight in America. Go and have a fight in America. Go and, go anywhere. But yeah, I'd do that. If I was Tony Yoka, if I was in charge of Tony Yoka, I'd be like, let's rip all that, French David Beckham of boxing pressure away from you and go and have a fight. Like the UK, loads of fighters in the UK would love a fight with Tony Yoka now. Eddie Hearn's probably looking at that. Sky Sports are probably looking at. They got what's the Olympian? The big used to be a doorman, a matchroom. Fraser, the English guy. Yeah, him. There's fight with him maybe. Like the phone will ring. Boxing's flying. There's fights all over the place at the moment. So yeah, he can still fight somewhere. But yeah, I'd go as the away fighter.
How was your overall experience for this event this past weekend, Adam? You were mentioning that the French fans are but they're very knowledgeable, more than people think about boxing. How was your overall experience at this event?
Yeah, good. Well, this is my second time to Paris. So yeah, really cool. French people are really nice, by the way. In English media, like France is the enemy. Like, something to do with fishing boats or EU waters or something. Like, out of all the places I've been to, like, friendliest border patrol, really friendly people, really good sense of humor. It's like England has this, like, French are really arrogant type of thing, but I'd say we are more so. So yeah, love France. It's a serious country, great culture, great history, and the boxing. There's, if you look at the history of boxing, if you go back to like the sort of the beginning of the last century when things started really kicking off, there were loads of big fighters going to France and Paris. David Haye had a big fight in Paris, didn't he? I think it's a great city for boxing. And yeah, the fans are mental there. They're really vicious. They shout, some pretty horrible stuff, people. And then that it's my favorite national anthem as well. When Dan Azeez was fighting Thomas Fowler, I was like, oh, God, our national anthem is rubbish compared to this. Like, I'm very patriotic as well, and the whole crowd all singing that song. Yeah, I'm falling in love with it. I'm very much like that though. I fell in love with Latvian boxing, so yeah. But yeah, I think with Boxer going over there, yeah, I think he's going to do really well in France boxing.
How many UK fans went for Dan Azeez, Adam?
Yeah, there were quite a few out there. My friend Sam O'Reilly, I haven't seen him for years actually. He was there with I saw him with a couple of mates, a fighter called Adrian Martin, who I used to know. Yeah, there were a few. It wasn't like all the lads on tour sort of thing, but a lot of people, there were like pockets of English fans. It was like, oh, what are you doing here? It was like, oh, we jumped on the Eurostar. Here we are. But yeah, Dan Azeez and Macaulay McGowan had a little pocket of Manchester fans there as well. But yeah, it was much more French. It was much more French than English.
Who are the most passionate fans that you've been around since you've been around a lot of regions and countries over there?
You'll be surprised with this. Hamburg, Germany.
Wow.
Because do you remember the old Klitschko shows, and you could hear a pin drop?
Yeah.
We were doing Hamburg in Hamburg, Universum Boxing Promotions. Flavio Mirabal, who's an amazing matchmaker as well. He sort of driving force behind that, but they were just in the gym. They just stuck the ring in the gym, and it's a really old school gym. You've got all the old school German boxing posters with Klitschko and all the stuff he did in Hamburg. But when they first let fans back in, it was quite tribal. So we just have sort of like 400 fans packed in this gym. So the venue may have helped that, but yeah, best atmospheres I've had is there with Felix Sturm fights. In fact, his little comeback he had. He's back in prison now.
Yeah, I was say he's in prison now for taxes.
He's such a nice guy, man. He's the most polite, friendliest, real super calm, proper chilled. I don't know. He's just got problems with a tax man in Germany. But yeah, I think he's taken the fall for someone or something there. Something going on with that. But he's not in proper prison. He's in like day release sort of thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Like open prison. I know boxing scene was like, Sturm in jail. It's like, let me out. No, it's kind of pretend prison. He's not really in prison. But yeah, that's the great. And not when I was commentating, but fight I covered, like when Bradis fought Usyk in Riga. Man, ridiculous. Latvians are quite reserved, quiet people as well. But that was the greatest atmosphere I've ever seen. That's going to be tough to top. I've been in some good atmospheres as well. Paris is a great atmosphere. But yeah, that was crazy. And then when Bolotniks fought Hosea Burton, that's in the top 3 as well. That was a crazy, amazing atmosphere. But we're all crammed into a nightclub because of COVID. So it's weird how COVID kind of created these weird, great moments out of this sort of horrible time. But yeah, quite a long answer for you. Sorry.
No, it's all right. It's all right. Also, this past weekend from the Echo Arena in Liverpool on DAZN for the WBO International Super Middleweight title, Diego Pacheco remains undefeated as he got the TKO in the 4th round over Jack Cullen, who takes the 4th loss of his professional career. We assume you didn't catch this fight, Adam, but just based on what you saw, the result, were you surprised?
Not really. No, not really. I've seen the highlights. Like on the the Instagram highlights. But yeah, how much boxing is on at the moment? It's crazy. I've never been happier. But you know what's so cool at the moment? A lot of people really hate Eddie Hearn, don't they? I'm actually a big fan. I actually really like some of the fights DAZN are putting on. I know there's the price plan and things like that. But as a boxing fan, I'm watching some really cool stuff down in Mexico. I told you how much I love the stuff in Mexico. So I'm a big fan of that. But yeah, knocking out, he's serious kid, Pacheco. But how cool is it, the UK as a Brit, that we could get people like Pacheco over? Like Callum Smith pulling out of a card. Yeah, he looks like a good fighter. I'm a fan of Pacheco. Yeah, he looks good. He's probably going to go all the way. He's probably going to be a serious, like, multi-weight world champion. He's going to win loads of belts. He's going to make loads of money. Yeah, he looks good.
Mike, what do you think about Pacheco's win? And how is he going to do in that super middleweight division going forward?
He got the win. I thought Jack Cullen started really well, and you could see a couple of holes maybe that we'd not seen before in Pacheco, because Cullen was kind of teeing off a few times early on with his jab, but he just couldn't cope with, I think, with the size of Pacheco, the strength of him. But yeah, TKO win for Diego. I was talking to him a couple of weeks back at an event where his brother was turning professional as a heavyweight. I think he's going to do really well. I think they've moved him really well. 18-0, picked up a little WBO international strap, and it's a super strong division. And I thought, playing on the Mexico Puerto Rico thing and having him call out Edgar Berlanga was pretty clever. I think Pacheco would probably take Berlanga. I think he's all just a man-made fighter with all those, first-round knockouts. And I think Diego would probably get rid of Berlanga if they actually managed to fight, later in the year. But I'm sure Berlanga's probably going to fight 2 bin men and then hope to get the Canelo fight and kind of cash out his career.
What do you think about Berlanga, Adam? Now that he's recently signed with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom, where do you think Eddie's going to navigate his career to? Mike obviously just said probably 2 fights and then try to get him into the Canelo fight. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, he may just become Canelo fodder. Yeah, I think that's what's happening for Berlanga. He's a good fighter, don't get me wrong. But yeah, a lot of what Matchroom do in America, the Americas, it all goes back to the big guy. Do you know what I mean? Canelo. So yeah, I agree with you guys there.
How do you think Pacheco? How do you think Pacheco would do against Berlanga? Do you agree with Mike in terms of that he'd probably come out with the win?
Yeah, I think he would. Yeah. I think he'd be too strong for him. But Berlanga's all right, and he probably will get his hands on one world title. But I'm right in thinking it's sort of profiles. One of the big reasons Matchroom have signed him. Am I right in thinking that or not?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
So that sort of creates like a bit of a screen over how good fighters really are. Do you know what I mean? There's like a couple of layers that you can get through to really find out. But yeah, I think for somebody like more serious,
right? For somebody like Berlanga, Adam, just because obviously we've seen that he's had some difficulties and then in his fights and then leaving Top Rank, now going with Eddie Hearn. With so much hype that he's had behind his career, if he had to change trainers, which might be a good idea for him, who would you recommend for him to be training under that would hopefully excel him to the next level?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Needs like a strong father figure who don't mind clipping him around the ear. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And he'd listen to it. I don't know. Who's he with right now at the moment, Berlanga? Who's his trainer right now?
It was Andre Rozier.
Yeah, it was, but it's not anymore.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe a Goosen. Maybe
Joe Goosen?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know, like a calming influence. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's who sprang to my mind anyway. I can just see those two. I can see
I
Goosen
think
with his arm around him.
I think that's a good suggestion. Goosen, yeah.
More a personality mesh than anything, I think.
Right.
Not that I know either guy, but yeah, I'll go with Goosen, yeah.
Yeah, no, that'd definitely be interesting. And then, hopefully we see Diego Pacheco do a little bit more, because I'm sure it's crossed Eddie Hearn's mind about Pacheco, Berlanga, but Berlanga has obviously got the bigger profile, so I'm sure Eddie Hearn has a little bit different plan for him, assuming he gets some wins in his next couple fights. Also on that card in Liverpool, Dara, is it Derek? How do you say it, Mike?
Dara Foley.
Thought it was a typo for a second. I guess a third round TKO over Robbie Davis Jr. Davis was injured, had an injured ankle in the third, which obviously contributed to the stoppage here. Mike, I'll start with you. What'd you think about this fight?
Foley, a last minute opponent, came in for the shock. Really, he dropped Davis, and then Davis got up, carried on going, and then Foley just kind of hit him at the same time. Davis kind of went over on his ankle and looked like he broke it, and then obviously just got back down, couldn't get back up. You could see his ankle was obviously broken or dislocated or whatever it was exactly, and obviously he couldn't fight on, so the fight was called off. And I think Foley thought he kind of knocked him out to begin with because he started celebrating, and then he realized like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't celebrate this much because it looks like I've actually won due to an ankle break. And he kind of apologized in the bout afterwards. But Foley, was calling people out, kind of saying to Eddie, like I won, like winner stays on. Let's go. Let's get some fights. He wants to fight on the card that we're going to talk about later. He wants to get on the Katie Taylor, Chantel Cameron undercard because he's an Irish fighter. So he wants to try and get on that card. So he was kind of calling Eddie out to put him on that card on May the 20th. Eddie didn't commit to anything, so we'll see what's going to happen, I guess.
Adam, out of all the events that you've done so far up until this point, what has been the worst injury that you've seen live in the arena?
I haven't seen anything that bad, you know. I haven't seen anything like Robbie Davis Jr. I've actually done that same injury to myself in football many years ago, so I literally feel his pain. So yeah, he's going to be out for. It looks much worse than it is. The Robbie Davis Jr. injury, by the way, he'll probably be walking again in 8 weeks. So he'll probably be all right. But no, there was Jeremiah Ponce, the Argentinian fighter who beat Lewis Ritson. He was fighting someone in Hamburg, and he had his arm held. Obviously, no one can see this, what I'm doing in the video, but when he had his arm and he just went to work on the guy's rib, and it just snapped, just pinged open like that, and just poking out their skin. Yeah. But do you know what happens? I always get blood on me at boxing shows. I've got blood on this laptop right now. There's like little dots of blood. Yeah. And then you feel like a bit like went like here yesterday, like on the side of my mouth. So yeah, that's been my biggest problem. And a fighter did fall over the ropes and knock my table, and my TV was going funny. That was in Hamburg too. But no, I haven't seen anything that horrific. I've been quite lucky. Yeah, I've been quite lucky. But yeah, the rib thing.
And also this past weekend from the...
I could jump in and say I did actually commentate an MMA fight where a guy broke the guy's windpipe. Yeah, so in MMA, he was leaning his forearm down on the guy's throat while he was on the floor, and he just wouldn't let it go, and he was coughing up blood everywhere, and he can't talk anymore. So that's it. Yeah, that was like some weird MMA thing. But yeah, that was a mess. I felt pretty sorry for that Lithuanian guy dying on the floor. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah.
Oh man, that's nuts.
Yeah, it was rough. Hassan Mejiev, who's an absolute angel in real life. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Combat sports, huh? It's not for the faint of heart. It really isn't. Also, this past weekend from the Kudos, hope I said that right, Bank Arena in Sydney, Australia, Olympic Park, Australia, down under. Tim Tszyu remains undefeated at 22-0 with the 9th round stoppage over Tony Harrison. This was for the WBO interim super welterweight title. So this was a much anticipated matchup when it was announced, and obviously we touched on it last week. I think I chose Harrison. I thought Harrison, even though he had a couple mishaps and losses leading up to it, and he wasn't himself leading up to it, but I thought Harrison, with the experience he had so far, I thought, I think he'll take it here. He'll take a decision. But I was obviously wrong. Tszyu came out and really essentially dominated the fight. Harrison had some moments, but Tszyu just, with the crowd behind him down there in Australia, really helped him and get to across the finish line. Adam, who was your prediction before this fight happened, and then what did you think of the actual outcome?
I really liked the fight when it was announced, because I wasn't too sure who was going to win. Obviously, that's the most exciting thing. But the home advantage, Australia, things like that. I thought Tszyu might, he hasn't been that eye-catching. But yeah, last night he's made himself, he is now eye-catching, and he's very serious in that division. And yeah, I think it's a welcome addition. I think it was nice to see him step on the gas and just get him out of there. It's quite nice to see that. I kind of enjoy that style of boxing more. I kind of saw more sort of Mexican style. But yeah, man, what a performance. What a finish. Again, I've only seen the highlights, obviously, but yeah, looked good. I was kind of shocked from what I was watching. I was like, oh, who's this guy? Yeah, so brilliant. Yeah, very cool.
So he called out, essentially, he called out Charlo at the in his post-fight interview. How do you think a matchup like that with Tszyu against Charlo, how do you think that would play out?
I think he struggles against Charlo. Yeah. I know he beat Harrison, there's all that sort of thing. But yeah. Yeah, he's going to struggle there. But yeah, I've got Charlo winning that.
By stoppage or decision?
By decision, points win. Wide.
Oh, wow. Mike, what do you think about Tszyu's win against Harrison and the subsequent possible Charlo fight?
Last week I picked Tony Harrison. And I can't decide whether it was a good performance from Tim Tszyu or just an atrocious performance from Tony Harrison, because, like I said last week, Tony Harrison just really blows like hot and cold. And I compared him to like a James DeGale where, he'll be performing really, really well, and then he just takes rounds off, and in that time he gets caught and stuff like that. And he reminded me of DeGale because he let Tim Tszyu dominate the center of the ring and then would go up against the ropes. And I was just thinking, if I remembered correctly, that was how he got knocked out by Charlo. He would keep going to the ropes and he'd ride the ropes to trying to take some sting off the punches, just kind of sit on them, lean back, and that's how he got stopped against Charlo. And in this one, I just don't know whether it was because he was super tentative, because he didn't like Tim Tszyu's power, but he hardly threw anything. He hardly did anything at all, to be honest with you. And then when you look at the finish, I don't think Tim Tszyu really has that, one punch knockout power, because it was about 25 unanswered punches, which he landed. And then the referee jumped in. He didn't really I suppose he did. He knocked Harrison down kind of against the ropes and he kind of crumbled. But the referee jumped in. So, yeah, I thought it was an okay performance from Tim Tszyu, but I kind of agree with Adam. He hasn't really, I would say, Tony Harrison's the best person he's fought so far. And it was kind of like an old, legs had gone, kind of gun-shy Tony Harrison. And on that performance, I think, Harrison's probably done. Because in my opinion, that's the Tony Harrison style is kind of man-made for Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu was very flat-footed, very high guard, comes forward, just kind of throws bombs. And Tony Harrison should have really, with the kind of elusive style that he had, man-made for him, in my opinion. A younger Tony Harrison anyway. And so I still can't decide, good performance from Tim Tszyu or just a bad performance from an older Tony Harrison. And I think I'm going to go with it's an older Tony Harrison just because he didn't really throw anything. And it was from quite early on that he didn't really throw anything. It's like he was just tentative or old or had a payday, or it just, his mind was doing something, but his body was doing something else because Father Time had got him.
I think Tszyu, regardless of how you compare it right now, whether it's Harrison was just a little slower and older, I think Tszyu he did what he needed to do. He showed a performance to show that he's a real deal at 154 pounds. Because now a lot of people are taking note. Oh, okay, he beat a guy. I think he said in his post-fight interview, I beat the guy who beat the guy. Even though Harrison rematched Charlo and lost, but the first fight he did get the victory. And so, and Tszyu stopped him. It was an impactful win regardless. So it makes the Charlo fight more intriguing, but like Adam said, I'm on the same boat. I think Charlo beats him because I think Charlo's just on a different level than pretty much anybody at 154 pounds and has been. He just needs to be more active, but even with the inactivity that he's been experiencing, he's still the best fighter at 154 pounds. Right, Adam?
I agree, yeah.
Charlo stops him with ease.
You think he stops him? So you disagree with Adam. Adam thinks it's a wide decision point win, but you think he stops him.
If we get the old Charlo, Charlo's been off, and I think for some time, and I think it's due to injuries and some personal problems, I believe the rumors are. And if he comes back and it's the Charlo of old, Charlo stops him. I just don't see. I've never seen anything from Tim Tszyu so far which I've gone, wow, that guy's future world champion. I think he's just been spoon-fed everything, similar to what Adam was saying before. They put a protective layer, like Adam said, like over people that sell tickets, and he's in Australia. Not many big boxes in that country, so they're going to protect him. And look at last night; he looked like he sold out wherever they were fighting. So why would you not, carry on and have that cash cow for as long as you can?
Right. Yeah. No, that's true.
It's got that sort of curse of the famous fighter's son. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Right.
Yeah. So he's got that real problem. Obviously, not all fighters' sons go on to be, but like Nico Ali Walsh. It's it kind of stops us finding out how good these fighters really are. Conor Benn, like, do you know what I mean? It kind of messes with your head. So yeah, he's got that going on as well. So,
Adam, who do you think you talk about fighters' sons and the legacies that they have to live, under? You have Conor Benn, you have Chris Eubank Jr., you got Tim Tszyu. Just naming those three for now. Who do you think at the end of the line, when they're all said and done in their professional career, who's going to be number one in that group of those three? Like, who carried on the legacy for their father the best?
Oh, Conor Benn, because he fights like his dad, to be fair. Yeah. Conor Benn is an exciting... I know his name is banned from UK at the moment. The poor guy, the poor little kid. I think Conor Benn. I think the failed drug tests are only helping his career at the moment. Like his next fight is going to break all records.
Publicity.
I know. Yeah, I know taking drugs is bad and blah blah blah, but let's be serious. Most, a lot of them are doing it. So, I kind of block that bit out, the drug thing. But yeah, I think with he's almost following his dad's career, falling out with the British Boxing Board of Control. He's going to go to America. I think the Americans are going to take to him quite well. Like, let me ask you a question: What's Conor Benn's profile like in the UK and was in the USA? And was his dad? His dad was out there quite a long time. He was pretty big in the US, no?
Mike, you want to take this one?
I would say Conor is a relative unknown, to be honest with you. I don't really get any of my boxing friends, I guess, really ever bring him up apart from, I think the drug test thing was probably the biggest thing I've ever really, anyone ever reached out to me with. And obviously I didn't live here during his dad's period, as a boxer, so I'm unsure on that one, to be honest.
Nigel Benn and Eubank, I would say, were a lot more obviously popular in the UK.
Obviously. Yeah.
And then I agree with Mike in terms of Conor Benn with, I think the most publicity he's gotten probably in the US is because of the recent situation he's been with the whole eggs excuse and the WBC and, losing the Eubank Jr. fight and all that. So I agree with you in that regard, Adam, in terms of the publicity he's getting off of that, whether it's negative or positive or what have you. He's getting attention. He's getting attention, and I do feel that when he fights again, whether it's in 3 months, 6 months, or anytime soon, people are going to tune in. He's doing like the rounds of media right now. I think he was recently on Piers Morgan talking about the situation, and he was on some other media outlets just talking about
nothing to do with the eggs. That's what he was saying.
Yeah. So, I think this is a blessing and a curse for his career in terms of publicity. So, it's raising his profile. But let's see if it'll follow him for a little bit. Some people, but like you said, people will still tune in to watch him. And I think the Eubank fight will still be made.
I think people will forget quite quickly. I think they really will. I think 2-3 fights time, a couple of nice interviews with Piers Morgan again. Most people are going to forget. Like, everyone's forgot about Fury. Everyone's forgot about Canelo. Maybe it's different in the US, but at the end of the day, everyone just wants to see good fights. They don't really care if they're, and a lot of the journalists in the UK have been not annoying me. I don't care about it that much, but everyone was getting very excited about the Conor Benn drug thing, which you should do. You should get, we don't want people taking performance-enhancing drugs, obviously. But everyone, they're just making money off it. Like, some of these things I do in Germany, like guys are failing for injections up the bum and just get a 6-month ban, and they're reinstated to the WBC straight away. Hussein Mohammed against Senad Gashi. Look that up on BoxRec. That's now a grey NC on the show. But yeah, like Gashi was knocking the guy out, and he was just sort of like nearly falling over, and then just snapping himself back into it. You have a look what's going on. Just scratch the surface. And Conor Benn is a relative angel compared to some of the other stuff going on. I just wanted to say that, but. Yeah, he still shouldn't be taking drugs, obviously, but yeah.
Right. Speaking of performance enhancing drugs, another guy who's been involved probably at a more higher profile level, at least especially in the United States here, since it was in New York. This upcoming Saturday, the 18th of March, from Dubai, heavyweight Jarrell Miller returns against Lucas Brown. Obviously, Jarrell Miller, as I mentioned, he was scheduled to fight a couple years ago, just before the pandemic, I think, Anthony Joshua in New York City, which would have been AJ's United States debut, Madison Square Garden, the Zone, all that stuff. And then Jarrell Miller popped for, it seemed like, every performance-enhancing drug under the sun, and then lost his opportunity. Andy Ruiz slid in. And that moment changed Andy Ruiz's life. So, you got Lucas Brown, Jarrell Miller. They both have run-ins with this type of situation. What do you think about this fight, Adam?
Sounds like a great night out, doesn't it? To go out with Jarrell Miller and Lucas Brown. You wouldn't get home till Monday morning, probably. All the chemicals you'd have in you. I don't know. It's a little bit circusy, isn't it? A little bit. I actually really enjoyed covering Lucas Brown's career, actually, like when I first started doing this stuff. It was kind of cool, even though, tainted meat or whatever. It's hard to keep up. But yeah, I think, Lucas Brown's going to get splattered in the first 2 rounds, and Jarrell Miller's back, and then he'll be back in the US and he can start making some money again. That's what this looks like. Yeah.
I'm sure he's trying to do that.
You've got Brandon Glanton in the fighting the Russian guy on the undercard as well. So that's actually quite a good fight. That's actually a really good fight. I'm more looking forward to that. Obviously, he's been on the Pro Box TV shows, so yeah, I tune into that one to watch. But yeah.
The co-main event of this one is Jono Caro against Miguel Mariaga too. I think that's a pretty decent matchup too. Mariaga's
as well.
Mariaga's been in there with some of the bigger names as well, and Jono Caro's obviously trying to, keep his career going as well. I think that's a good matchup.
That's a great fight. That's a really good fight. Yeah, that's going to be fun. Dubai's crazy, isn't it? And like the Middle East, it's kind of this place where drug cheats now go to continue their career.
Safe haven.
It's this safe Cayman Islands of boxing. So yeah, long live the Middle East.
And then also this upcoming Saturday, the 18th of March, from Long Beach, California, here in the Los Angeles area in Southern California, from the Walter Pyramid, where California State Long Beach, the University of California State Long Beach right there, on the Zone, a Golden Boy Promotions card on the Zone. Gilberto Ramirez, 44-1, goes up against King Gabe Rosado, 26-16-1. Obviously, this is Ramirez's first fight, I believe, since his loss to Bivol last year. So what do you think about this matchup, Adam?
It's okay. We all know what it is. I think the second Gilberto Ramirez lost to Bivol, I think De La Hoya was probably calling Gabe Rosado to get this one sorted. Just thought you could feel it coming. Do you know what I mean? But you never know. You never know. Ramirez, he's come off a loss. Rosado's no joke. tough kid. Well, not really a kid anymore, but yeah. So typical. I don't really care. Is pretty. Ramirez is probably going to win. He's going to have another run at getting a world title at 175 pounds. But it'd be interesting to see how Ramirez looks. Because I think that loss to Bivol, it didn't really do anything that bad. It's just Bivol's so good. But yeah, I think because Ramirez is sensational fighter. I think we really found out how good Bivol was in that fight. So yeah, be interesting. But yeah, I'd like to see Ramirez. He's probably going to grab a title at that weight at some point. So yeah, good management by Golden Boy. Really, I think perfect fight for him to come back to.
Mike, what do you think about this matchup?
It's an interesting matchup. Gabe Rosado moving up in weight to face Ramirez. It's just funny to see, Gabe Rosado still, headlining events. He kind of had like a little purple patch to his career. Didn't he? Since beating Beck the Bully, and then he fought Munguia, and now he's in there with Ramirez. Typical old school gladiator, right? Just if you've got enough money, like Gabe Rosado will fight anywhere, any place, anytime, any opponent, any weight. It seems as well. So I hope it's a good fight. I love Gabe Rosado. I just love that style of his. It's like the Nate Diaz. He's like a Nate Diaz, isn't he, of the boxing world? So I think it's Ramirez will probably be too big. Ramirez gets in and looks more like a flipping cruiserweight after he's rehydrated half the time. So I think he'll just be too big, too strong, and eventually bully Gabe Rosado and maybe stop him, maybe just win by like a wide points decision. Because Rosado's just a dog in the end, and I don't see him giving up or getting put down or anything like that. So I could see it going the full 10 or 12 rounds, and Ramirez just wins on points. But just hope Rosado doesn't take a prolonged beating, because I think most boxing fans are a fan of Gabe Rosado.
Absolutely, yeah. And then in the co-main event, which is the fight I'm looking forward to the most. Since we follow a lot these fighters since they were young here in the Southern California scene, especially with Golden Boy Promotions. Joseph Jojo Diaz Jr., 32-3-1, goes up against Mercito Gesta, 33-3-3, almost identical records. I'm a fan of this fight. I think this is almost kind of like a crossroads fight for both of them. Jojo Diaz has obviously been a world champion. Gesta has had world championship title shots. He just came up short. I know he fought Jorge Linares a couple years back. Gave a good account of himself in that fight, but ultimately lost. I like this fight. What do you think about this fight, Adam? Gesta and Diaz Jr.
Well, I'll be perfectly honest with you. This is the first time hearing about it, but yeah, it's a good fight. That's a really nice fight. That's well matched. Yeah, that's a pick'em. I don't know quite who's going to win that. You lean with Diaz, wouldn't you?
You would, yeah.
Yeah, with what he's done. But Gesta, I don't know. He's going to have to win one of these big fights at some point. So this could be it. But yeah, that's a good fight. First I've heard about it, to be perfectly honest with you. Obviously with eyes on other things within boxing. But yeah, that's a nice fight on the undercard. Yeah, that's a co-main event, is it?
It is.
Yeah, that's a nice. Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, they had to put that good fight on for Rosado because everyone sort of knows what's coming. So yeah, glad to hear that's on it. I'm more interested in the show now. You mentioned that fight. So
yeah, that's the fight I'm looking forward to. Obviously, Rosado's a good, shows a lot of heart, but in terms of, I think, competitiveness, I think Diaz and Gesta as the co-main, I think that's the fight to look at. That definitely is. Mike, what do you think about this matchup?
I'm going to go against you. I think Joseph Diaz mops him, to be honest with you.
You think so? I think Gesta just has that ability to bring it sometimes, and I think he'll do it. I'm holding out hope.
We'll find out. Unlike Bivol Beterbiev, we'll find out on Saturday, I guess. I think Gesta a couple of years ago, he's just been super inactive. Since 2019, he's fought 3 times, 1 loss, 1 draw against Carlos Morales. Carlos Morales isn't really doing much And then also the other Diaz, he fought and beat Joel Diaz Jr. Fantasy Springs. I think me and you were actually there, Dan. April 2022. So yeah, I just think he's just been super inactive. Golden Boy seemed to like him. I assume he must sell tickets, something like that. I think just all of that combined, and the fact that since Joseph Diaz has been moving up in weight and looking really good, really strong, I think it's a good fight for Joseph Diaz to hopefully come in there and get him out early and get himself back into the mix.
Hesta, I don't know if you remember, Adam, but Hesta was the rumored opponent that Ryan Garcia was supposed to fight in January. Before Ryan decided to not to fight and just focus on the Tank Davis fight. Do you think, and even Ryan, as recently as last week or this past week in the press conferences for the Davis fight, he didn't mention Hesta by name, but he's like, they wanted me to take a tune-up in January, but I decided not to because I wanted to focus on the Tank Davis fight. Do you think somebody like Hesta for Ryan Garcia in January would be considered a tune-up fight?
No, that's a really hard tune-up fight. Yeah, that's a terrible idea. That's so risky when you've got this huge fight, pay-per-view, this is a huge fight. This is great against Garcia Davis. Fair play to Ryan Garcia. He's done the right thing. So was it his promoter who wanted him to do the warm-up fight, or just a general?
I think it was Golden Boy, obviously his promoter, and Oscar De La Hoya, and I think Ryan was on board initially, but then
they're trying to look out for their fighter. I get it, but Hester, that's not that's a tough warm-up fight. Let's get rid of warm-up fights. I'm sick of them.
Listen to this. Hester's pro debut, October the 19th, 2003. 20 years ago.
How old is he?
35.
What?
He turned pro in the Philippines, October the 19th, 2003, in 4-round unanimous decision.
Wait a minute. So he was
35 now.
Yeah, 2003. So 20 years ago, he was 15.
Oh, he was 15. Wow. That's crazy.
Well, Canelo did that. I think Canelo turned pro at 15 in Mexico, right? So, other countries.
His birthday.
Yeah.
It was. Just give me 1 second. His birthday is October the 12th, so it was a week after his 15th birthday.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Wow. See, that's what I'm telling you. You can't, he has a lot of miles on him, but Hesta can fight, man. He can fight.
Well, if you look at what sort of the Kiko Martinez renaissance we saw recently, it just goes to show you it's not all written in the. We were all saying Kiko Martinez was completely finished when he got knocked out by Scott Quigg 5-6 years ago now. And look what he's done. He's coming over here and beating them all up. I know he lost his last fight to Warrington, but he's looking good.
Road warrior.
Yeah.
Road warrior Kiko Martinez.
Yeah, these guys. And has Hester had a good camp, loads of time to prepare, things like that?
I would imagine because, like Danny said, I think he probably was initially in camp ready for the January, and then everything got changed, and this fight was announced quite a while ago. I remember getting an email about it a while ago. I just kind of forgot about it till I wrote the show notes because it hasn't been really pushed out to the public, has it? Too much. I haven't seen too much PR for it, but I think he's had quite a long time for camp.
Oh, right. So that should help the quality of the fight then, which obviously makes a huge difference. Okay, interesting. Huh.
I think it's an intriguing fight. I think it's an intriguing fight. I hope it lives up to the intrigue that we're discussing here.
I'm more worried that Golden Boy were going to use that as a warm-up fight when they got this big. I'm kind of concerned for Team Garcia. Yeah, that's kind of astonishing. Especially that's why I was asking about the full camp and things like that. But anyway, just speaking of that.
No, yeah, I did because Diaz and Hesta have been reported as potential opponents for Ryan Garcia over the last year or two. So, if Ryan wins or if he especially if he loses to Davis next month, Diaz and Hesta could be possible comeback opponents for him. So within the Golden Boy stable. So we'll see. We will see. News and notes of this week's episode as we race towards the finish line for this week's episode. Katie Taylor's homecoming fight in Ireland on May 20th now has a new opponent, undisputed junior welterweight champion Chantel Cameron. Cameron is ESPN's number 7 pound-for-pound fighter currently. So I think this is a good substitution, especially in Ireland, where Katie Taylor obviously should draw a very, very passionate and big crowd for a homecoming fight. What do you think about this matchup, Adam?
Yeah, to be fair, I do love the how the female side of boxing, they don't really mess around. They get the fights done pretty quickly. That's Serrano pull out, and Chantel Cameron's probably, I don't know in terms of profile, but she's the pound for pound number 1 in the UK. I would say maybe her and I'd say it's her definitely. So yeah, it's like a super sub. Do you know what I mean? It's a great replacement. 2 undisputed champions going at it. Great to see boxing going back to Ireland as well. It's an absolute crime that no professional boxing has been going on in that amazing country, neighboring country to me. Great fighters, great culture, great fans. You asking me earlier about places I want to commentate. Take me to Ireland. Do you know what I mean? Let's do a big show in Dublin. So yeah. Big. It's big for boxing in the British Isles in Europe to have Ireland cracking again. So yeah, for Chantel Cameron to come in as well, a British girl. I think it's going to be really good for the show. I think it's a bit of a blessing in disguise almost.
And then also Devin Haney and Vasily Lomachenko are finalizing the deal for this date on May 20th. Potentially in Las Vegas for the undisputed lightweight championship of the world, which Devin Haney currently holds. I think Haney, who is a practicing Muslim, wanted this fight to happen before Ramadan, which obviously affects his eating habits and all that stuff during the day. But Top Rank and ESPN had like a schedule of TV that they were trying to make. So it looks like they were able to speak to him, and they're going to put it in the May schedule. A Top Rank on ESPN card. It seems like this will be a regular card, so it wouldn't be pay-per-view over here in the United States. But we'll see. It doesn't seem like it will. What do you think about this fight, Adam? Lomachenko and Devin Haney for the undisputed 135 title.
Love it. Absolutely love it. It's a tough one to pick, isn't it? Has Lomachenko still got it? Is his shoulder injury over? Devin Haney's got a bit of a, not recently, like he's taken on big fights, going over to Australia with the Cambosis thing. And obviously his dad with the visa, I thought he handled that very well. He looked levels above Cambosis. But Lomachenko's something different, He's something completely different. He's, with my naked eye, he's one of the greatest fighters I've ever seen. He's like him and Usyk. Wow. So yeah, he's obviously he's lost a couple of steps. He's a bit slower, Lomachenko, than he used to be. But he's still got something there. So yeah, it's a great fight, and yeah, it's a tough one to call, which makes it a great fight. You sort of lean Haney, maybe because of the age, but yeah, great fight. I've got no idea who's winning that one. That's a tough one, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely an intriguing fight. And then also Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, I don't want to say are closing in on a deal, as we know how Fury works, but Tyson Fury had released a video saying, calling Usyk on the terms and conditions about a potential matchup, and then that he wanted 70-30 split. And then Usyk responded via video as well, saying, hey, I'll take it. 70-30, I'll do it. He got some criticism for that, for people like, oh, he's the undisputed champion, he shouldn't take it. But obviously Usyk just wants to fight. And then Fury responds with his video. And so as of right now, it's not finalized as of this moment. But what do you think, Adam? Is Fury playing mind games here like he usually does, or are we going to see it in the next 3 months?
No, it's just Tyson Fury talking utter rubbish as always. It's just, I don't know. It's just being a bit childish on social media. I think they will fight. I think it will happen. But yeah, he's just being a little bit greedy, isn't he? He's probably I love him as a fighter, but yeah, I get bored of his sort of media tantrums and things like that. Just get the fight on, man. He goes on about wanting to do things like he's been talking about. He was going to do it for free, wasn't he? And he was going to do it for free, and it had to be in the UK. And now he wants a certain amount of money. And we all got sent the press release of him fighting Anthony Joshua. You just completely messing everyone around, not being straight with people. So yeah, I hope Usyk knocks him out, man. He's annoying me, Tyson Fury. Do the fight, just do it, just do it, man.
Yeah,
it's all about like being fighting man and fighting people and that. It doesn't look like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fury, what a character. One of the biggest characters in the sport of boxing. So he knows how to wind people up. He definitely does. But once again, Adam, we obviously appreciate it. Your first time here on the Last Round podcast. Hopefully it's not your last. I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future. And we obviously appreciate it. We know you're just coming back from Paris. So, you had to travel and you got home within the last couple hours or so. So we obviously appreciate the time you're giving.
Yeah, it's not too bad a travel. It's pretty chilled. But yeah, guys, I would probably do this non-podcast. I'd just quite happily come and have a chat with you, catch up on the week's boxing. So maybe we can do that off this. I don't know. But
that'd be great. That'd be great. I mean, we talk boxing every week. We try to discuss stuff that happens all over the world. So if it's two guys who want to discuss, it's obviously us two. So before we sign off here, Adam, go ahead and let people know where they can find you and follow you and keep up with your career.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm terrible on social media. I'm really bad at it. Twitter is at Adam-Forcey Sports, the digit 4, so the number 4C Sports. I'm Adam Noble-Forcey with a hyphen. I'm the only Adam Noble-Forcey in the world. It's quite easy to find. Yeah, literally, I'm the only one with that name. Not.
That's good. That's good. No. Uniqueness, right? Uniqueness. Definitely.
Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's not. Especially when people are looking for you. So, no.
Absolutely. Mike, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
We are at The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to join us next week. We'll be previewing Lawrence Okoli, David Light, Jose Ramirez, Richard Comey, David Benavidez, and Caleb Plant. So action-packed week next week. Definitely. I think we have a guest lined up as of right now, so we have to confirm with them. So, hopefully he's still on schedule, which he should be, but we'll announce it next week. So for once again, our guest of the week in combat sports commentator, publicist, and journalist in Adam Noble-Forcey. For my co-host, Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is The Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.